And so what is required? People who are involved in good practices, righteous deeds, must provide moral support to others, must advise each other to remain patient. قُلْ هَلْ نُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِالْأَخْسَرِينَ أَعْمَالًا. Say, shall we inform you of the greatest losers as to their deeds? Again, think about the fact that this is a question that is being posed. If someone comes to us and tells us, I know how you can protect yourself from this, viral infection that is going around. Everybody's getting sick. I can tell you what you can do to save yourself. Do you want to know how you can keep yourself safe from major illness? Do you want to know? Quickly, our response would be what? Yes, of course, tell me. I want to know. Here Allah is asking us so that we can save ourselves from those deeds which will not benefit at all in the end. Those deeds that are worthless deeds. So who are those who are the worst losers when it comes to their deeds? الَّذِينَ ضَلَّ سَعْيُهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. They are those whose effort is lost in worldly life. وَهُمْ يَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ يُحْسِنُونَ صُنْعًا. While they think that they are doing well in work. The term ضَلَّ from ضاد lam lam. ضلال is misguidance. It's used for when something gets lost. And the term سَعْيُهُمْ from sin ayn ya. Sa'yun literally means to run or move quickly. It applies to striving and putting in effort. الَّذِينَ ضَلَّ سَعْيُهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. They are those whose effort is lost in worldly life, meaning their actions in this dunya got lost in the hereafter, bringing no reward. Or this means all their efforts got lost in worldly life, being limited to worldly life, in terms of benefit also, because they didn't intend for the hereafter. And so it's kind of like with their death, their actions died. وَهُمْ يَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ يُحْسِنُونَ صُنْعًا. While they think they are doing well in work. The term يَحْسَبُون from ha sin ba. The masdar, husban, means to consider or suppose or assume. And the term صُنْعًا from صاد nun ayn. The masdar, صُنْع, means to do something skillfully. It's used in the meaning of craftsmanship. The term صانع is used for a craftsman. The term مصنوعات is used for manufactured products. And the term مصنع is used for a factory. So صنع is used for an action that is done with skill and effort in the best possible way. The term فعل, on the other hand, is used just for an action. Those whose effort is lost in worldly life while they think that they're doing well in work. So the truth is confused to them. They're upon falsehood, but they think that they're upon truth. And this is very common, sadly. Each person thinks that what he's doing is right. It's the best. The followers of each religion think that they're upon the truth. And when a person is of this mindset, then he doesn't really search for the truth, nor does he strive to change himself. So think about it, people busy working morning and evening, but their deeds fruitless, their efforts useless, bringing them no benefit in the hereafter, not even one bit. Their entire focus in life is the enjoyment of this life. They don't think about the hereafter. And hence, whatever they acquire will be left behind when they die, no matter how great it may be. Thousands and thousands of dollars, huge houses, big factories, big lists of qualifications, very educated children, very rich friends, thriving businesses. And when they come before their Lord, they will have nothing. In Surah al-Furqan, verse 23, we learn, وَقَدِمْنَا إِلَى مَا عَمِلُوا مِنْ عَمَلٍ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ هَبَاءً مَنْثُورًا. And we will regard what they have done of deeds and make them as dust dispersed. Apparently their deeds may seem very beautiful, great, amazing, even beneficial to some extent. But the reality is that those deeds will have no value in the sight of Allah on the Day of Judgment. Because they were never performed keeping the hereafter in mind. Think about Dhul Qarnayn again. He achieved a lot, right? He was granted tawfiq by Allah to do a lot. He had a far-reaching impact in this dunya. You could also say he left a legacy behind. But he always had the hereafter in mind. He did ahsan amal at a large scale. But on the other hand, when you look at Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they were involved in large-scale fasad. And they killed and they rampaged. And they will, when they do come back, repeat the same behavior. At even a larger scale. In verse number 98, we learned Dhul Qarnayn, he said, هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي, this is a mercy from my Lord. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي جَعَلَهُ دَكَّا وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي حَقًّا. But when the promise of my Lord comes, he will make it, meaning this radam level, and ever is the promise of my Lord true. So he believed in Allah's promises. He believed in the hereafter. Right? So keep in mind that our deen does not condemn a person for excelling in dunya, thriving in terms of a business or owning a house or houses for that matter, becoming a millionaire even. But what it does condemn is that a person does what he does only for the sake of this world, without keeping the hereafter as the main goal, and then becoming arrogant over his accomplishments here, neglecting the rights of Allah and the rights of people at times as well. So whatever it is that we have here in this dunya, these are the means that we use to strive for the best end in the hereafter. The means, not the end itself. So in using these means, the deen should not be compromised. So in trying to acquire more and more money in this dunya, one should not be abandoning salawat. One should try one's best to stay away from riba. Right? And also, selfishly wanting more and more for yourself and depriving others is zulm. If we become just consumers who want more and more in terms of produce, in terms of, different kinds of varieties of food and drink, we're only going to generate more and more wastage. We're going to harm the environment, which leads to what? Fasad fil ard. And when you think about how rapidly, consumerism is growing within people, and this whole mindset of independence, being independent in whatever you choose to do, the more we find, selfishness growing, oppression also growing. So people just want to get richer and richer. How they get rich, they don't even care anymore. And the richer they get, the more they want richness. It seems like there's no end. And sadly, some of the richest people end up becoming some of the most oppressive ones. In Surah Al-Isra, we learn in verse number 19, وَمَنْ أَرَادَ الْآخِرَةَ, but whoever desires the hereafter, وَسَعَى لَهَا سَعْيَهَا, and exerts the effort due to it, وَهُوَ مُؤْمِن, while he is a believer, فَأُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ سَعْيُهُمْ مَشْكُورًا, it is those whose effort is ever appreciated by Allah. And we learn in Surah An-Nur, verse number 39, وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَعْمَالُهُمْ كَسَرَابٍ, but those who disbelieve, their deeds are but like a mirage in a lowland, which a thirsty one thinks is water, until when he comes to it, he finds it is nothing but finds Allah before him, and he will pay him in full his due, and Allah is swift in account. In Surah Ibrahim, also verse number 18, we learn, مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ, the example of those who disbelieve in their Lord is that their deeds are like ashes which the wind blows forcefully on a stormy day. They are unable to keep from what they earned a single thing. That is what is extreme error. And this is why we are to recite this surah, Surah al-Kahf, every week. right? On the day of Jumu'ah, we're supposed to recite this. So that we ask ourselves on a weekly basis, is what it is that I'm doing going to be of lasting value? So analyze, again, as we spoke about earlier also, your deeds in terms of quality. Think about wudu. How do you perform wudu? With quality? Think about salah. Do you perform salah with quality? Think about your da'wah. Are you doing your da'wah with quality? Think about the recitation of the Qur'an. Is it done with quality? Again, our focus needs to be ahsan amal, not akthar amal. And then here Allah mentions, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ. Those are the ones who disbelieve in the verses of their Lord. وَلِقَائِهِ, and in their meeting Him. فَحَبِطَتْ أَعْمَالُهُمْ, so their deeds have become worthless. فَلَا نُقِيمُ لَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَزْنًا, and we will not assign to them on the day of judgment any importance in the mizan. Ulaika, those, meaning those who live their lives this way, their deeds are wasted in this dunya. And they think that what they're doing is very good. Those are the ones who disbelieve in the verses of their Lord. Ayat, plural of ayah, and ayat are of two types, kawniyya and shar'iyya. And disbelieving in the ayat, which are kawniyya, is, for example, saying that all of this that has been created came into existence by itself. There's no God. There was just this random big bang that happened somewhere, and all of this fell into place the way it is. There's no God. This is kufr of which kind of ayat? Kawniyya. Or even claiming that there's no resurrection. How can there be resurrection? When people's bodies have disintegrated, how will they be brought forth? This is kufr of ayat kawniyya. And then kufr of ayat shar'iyya, saying something like, oh, the Qur'an is just stories that have been put together, assembled by some human being. It's human fabrication. So here Allah mentions those, the ones who have lost their deeds completely, the greatest of losers, those are the ones who disbelieve in the verses of their Lord. وَلِقَائِهِ, and in their meeting Him, meaning they denied resurrection. The term liqa'i from lam qaf ya, laqiya means to meet. Liqa is assembly or encounter, get together, meeting. فَحَبِطَتْ أَعْمَالُهُمْ, so their deeds have become worthless. And the term habitat from baqa, hubut, is used for when something is futile and wasted. So as a result of their kufr, their actions are void, bringing no reward. So even if a person does seemingly good deeds, is kind, generous, charitable maybe even, maintains good relations with family, with kufr, none of this will benefit him. So no matter how great their deeds were seemingly, their deeds will become worthless. Their deeds will come to an end when their lives come to an end. Whereas a believer who performs his deeds with iman, his deeds will last even after him departing from this world. Again, Dhul Qarnayn, the wall that he made, with such sincerity, which prevented the Ya'juj and Ma'juj from spreading corruption all over the earth, this deed of his is sadaqatun jariyah for him, ongoing charity. Likewise, whatever you do for the benefit of other people, in the state of iman, for the sake of Allah, is a source of continuous reward for you as long as it benefits others. But as for the disbelievers, whatever good they do in this life will become worthless on the day of judgment. Now some might say, but that's not fair. They did such good things. Why will they not be recompensed for that good? They never did the good they did for the hereafter to begin with. They never did the good that they did for the hereafter, for the sake of Allah, with sincerity, believing in His oneness. And here Allah mentions, فَلَا نُقِيمُ لَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَزْنًا, and we will not assign to them on the day of judgment any importance. The term nuqimu from qaf waw mim. Iqamah means to establish something. And also iqamah means to stay and give the haqq of staying in a place. So the term aqamatu shay, it means to make something stand and give its full haqq. We will not assign to them, meaning to their deeds, their status, their personalities, on the day of judgment, any importance. Now, we learn in Surah Al-A'raf that Allah mentions, وَالْوَزْنُ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْحَقُّ, and the weighing of deeds that day will be the truth. Right? Verse 8 of Surah Al-A'raf. But here it is mentioned that their deeds will not be assigned any weight. So how do we understand this? The wazn, the weighing, is true. But because their deeds have become worthless, they will have no weightage. So this is how degraded and lowly they will be. They may have amassed a lot of wealth in the dunya, but they will have nothing there. Allah will not make their balance heavy because it is empty of any goodness. Again, think about how in this surah, Ahsan Amal is mentioned repeatedly. Baqiyatu Salihat also are mentioned. Because near Allah, the quantity doesn't matter, rather it is the quality that counts more. So if a person performs a few deeds, but with ikhlas, this would make the balance heavy. But if a person brought many, many deeds without any sincerity, those deeds would have no weight. In Surah Al-Mu'minun, we learn in verses 103 and 104, وَمَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ, but those whose scales are light, those are the ones who lost their souls, being in the hellfire, abiding eternally. The fire will sear their faces, and they therein will have taut smiles, meaning their faces will be disfigured. We learn that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said on the day of resurrection, a huge man will come who will not weigh the weight of the wing of a mosquito in Allah's sight. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam added, فَلَا نُقِيمُ لَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَزْنًا. We shall not give them any weight on the day of resurrection. And as for the believer, even if he does a worldly task, but with a good intention, he will be rewarded for it. So even something like cooking a nutritional meal for yourself and for your family so that you are energized enough to worship Allah properly, without reminding of favors, without showing off. This will be something which will be of lasting benefit. This is something that will be rewarded. Right? Sadly, many of us, we perform these kinds of worldly tasks without any solid intention. We're just like on, autopilot, without any pure intention. And then, even if sometimes we make our intentions somewhat good, like cooking, we cook nutritional food, we serve it to our family members, and then we do what? Remind them of favors. I'm the one who cooks in this house all the time. Me. And what is this then? Doing something good and then washing it away. Right? Wastage of good deeds. Also, we learned that Imam al-Shafi'i, he on one occasion ate at the house of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And he ate well. And he said, "Oh Ahmad, I ate plenty because I know for certain that your food is halal." Meaning Islamically, it is permissible. "And you are a generous man. And the food that comes from a generous man is a cure, while the food that comes from a stingy man is a disease." So our deeds must be free of riya and man and adha. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Allah said, "Verily, I have no need of any partners. Whoever performs a deed in which he associates another besides me, I will abandon him and his partner." Think about this. Verily, I have no need of any partners. Whoever performs a deed in which he associates another besides me, I will abandon him and his partner. So this means that that person who performed a deed for someone else, meaning not for Allah, should then go and take reward from that person, that being. What can that being do? Nothing. Think about it. If you do something for the sake of people, you should be doing it for the sake of Allah. But your intentions become mixed up, corrupted. And you're doing something for people. You expect praise from them, support from them. This is impure. Allah doesn't need this. These kinds of deeds He leaves. Whoever performs a deed in which he associates another besides me, I will abandon him and his partner. Which means that this person who performed a deed not for the sake of Allah purely, but for people, will then have to do what? Try to go to those people and gain some reward from them? How much will people praise you for something good you've done? Only a very little amount, right? Because easily people reach like a saturation point when it comes to praising other people. Very easily. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Seek refuge in Allah from a pit of sorrow." So the Sahaba, they said, "Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is the pit of sorrow?" He said, "It is a valley in the hellfire from which the hellfire itself seeks refuge 100 times a day." So they said, "Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who will enter it?" He said, "The reciters who only acted to be seen." The reciters who only acted to be seen. The reciters who recited to be noticed. By whom? People. And so it is so important, vital, that we keep a close check on our intentions. On the other hand, if someone does something good, and we observe them doing something good, we should have enough generosity to appreciate that good. Okay? So we learned that Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said that when I hear that it has rained in such and such land, such and such town, it rejoices me, although I do not have any of my animals grazing in that town. Which means what? It's part of Iman to actually be happy about other people's accomplishments. Because sometimes we become very miserly when it comes to even praise and appreciation. Where it is that, some amount of appreciation is of use, it's of benefit, show that appreciation. But everything is good in balance. Don't overdo it. Right? Then Allah mentions here next, ذَلِكَ جَزَاؤُهُمْ جَهَنَّمُ بِمَا كَفَرُوا. That, meaning the wastage of deeds, is their recompense, hell, for what they denied. وَاتَّخَذُوا آيَاتِي وَرُسُلِي هُزُوًا. And because they took my signs and my messengers in ridicule. That is their jaza, Jahannam, for what they denied, and because they took my ayat, my signs, kawniyya and shar'iyya. And shar'iyya, including the commands of Allah. They took my ayat and my rusul, messengers, huzwa, in ridicule. Rusul is the plural of rasul. And huzwa, from hamza, hazi'a means to mock someone. And huzwa is that which is made fun of. So we will punish them with that because of their disbelief and because they took the signs and the messengers of Allah as a joke. Like making fun of the sunnah. making fun of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family matters. In Surah Al-Anbiya, we learn in verse number 36, and when those who disbelieve see you referring to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they take you not except in ridicule. إِن يَتَّخِذُونَكَ إِلَّا هُزُوًا, saying, is this the one who insults your gods? And they are at the mention of Ar-Rahman, disbelievers. In Surah Al-Furqan, verse 41, we learn, and when they see you again referring to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they take you not except in ridicule, saying, أَهَذَا الَّذِي بَعَثَ اللَّهُ رَسُولًا, is this the one whom Allah has sent as a messenger? On the other hand, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, indeed those who have believed and done righteous deeds, كَانَتْ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتُ الْفِرْدَوْسِ نُزُولًا, they will have the gardens of paradise as a lodging. Those who have believed, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, آمَنُوا from iman. Iman is belief or faith. And the place of iman is the heart. The place of a'mal, deeds, is the limbs, which includes the heart as well. Indeed, those who have believed and done righteous deeds. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Salihat, plural of salihah. And righteous deeds are those that are performed with sincerity and in accordance with the laws of Allah. So those who have believed and done righteous deeds, they will have gardens of paradise as nuzula, a lodging. Meaning before they arrive, it will be ready for them. The term firdaus, from fa, ra, dal, sin, is taken as a proper name of the highest level of Jannah, which is under Allah's arsh. The highest level of Jannah. Or another way it has been understood is that this term, firdaus, from fa, ra, dal, sin, is used for a valley or a garden that is full of fruits and flowers. It's basically used for a type of garden that contains everything that should be in a garden. It's also used for a fruitful valley, especially with grapevines. And the term farodasa, it literally means to spread on the ground, to be broad, ample, wide, comfortable. We learn that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, whoever believes in Allah and his messenger, offers prayer correctly and fasts the month of Ramadan, then it is incumbent upon Allah to admit him into paradise. Whether he emigrates for Allah's cause or stays in the land where he was born. The companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, should we not inform the people of that? He said, there are 100 degrees in paradise which Allah has prepared for those who carry on jihad in His cause. The distance between every 2 degrees is like the distance between the sky and the earth. So if you ask Allah for anything, ask Him for Firdaus, al-Firdaus. For it is the last part of paradise and the highest part of paradise, and at its top there is the Arsh of Ar-Rahman. And from it gush forth the rivers of paradise. Then also we learn that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, paradise has 100 levels, and between each 2 levels it is a distance like that between the heavens and the earth. Al-Firdaus is its highest level, from which 4 rivers of paradise flow, and above which is the Arsh, the throne of Allah. When you ask from Allah, ask for Al-Firdaus. So here Allah mentions those who have believed and done righteous deeds, they will have the gardens of paradise as a lodging. خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا, wherein they abide eternally. They will stay there forever and never leave. لَا يَبَغُونَ عَنْهَا حِوَلًا, they will not desire from it any transfer. The term يَبَغُون from بَغَيْن يَا, the term baghi means rebellion or unfairness, inequity. Yabaghi means to, number 1, desire or seek, and number 2, to rebel for fulfilling needs or desires. Because when you really want something, You desire something, you're ready to cross all kinds of limits in terms of acquiring it. And the term hiwala from hawaulam, hiwal means change of place or dislocation. Hawl means change or transformation. Hawl is also used for a year because many changes occur in the year, even when it comes to just the seasons. Right? The term hal is used for the state of someone because that also changes a lot. So, the people of Jannah will never want to leave Jannah. They will never want to shift to another location because they will be so pleased with the blessings that they will be enjoying therein. In this dunya, when you stay in a place that is seemingly very beautiful, even if it's like, the most luxurious resort, where you have access to pretty much everything you would want. If it is that you get even a whiff of someone having something better than you, what are you going to want? That. You're not going to no longer be happy with what you have. But keep in mind that the inhabitants of Jannah, all of them will feel as if they're the most fortunate. That is why Jannah is Darus Salam. That is why it is the most secure abode. Because there's no anxiety. Right? We also learn that Rasulullah, he said the people of the first group to get into paradise will have their faces as bright as the full moon during the night. And the next to this group would have their faces as bright as the shining stars in the sky. And every person would have 2 wives, and the marrow of their shanks would glimmer beneath the flesh, and there would be none without a wife in paradise. Nobody's going to be lonely. Nobody's going to be lonely in Jannah. You may have visited, people with beautiful, large homes, palaces, mansions. Or perhaps you went to like a beautiful park. After some time, what happens? You become tired. You need a change. There is no place in this entire world where a person can say that now that I've reached this place, I'm never going to get bored. Because this dunya is incomplete. It's not perfect. There's no place where you can say, okay, now I am 100% satisfied. There's no such place in this dunya. And what happens to you when you feel bored? You want change. You want to change in your setting. And then when you get that change of setting, you're quickly bored again, and then you need another change. Whereas in Jannah, there is no such problem. A person will never feel bored, will never want any change, any transferring. In Surah Sad, we learn in verse number 54, إِنَّ هَذَا لَرِزْقُنَا مَا لَهُ مِن نَفَادٍ. Indeed, this is our provision, for it there is no depletion. So rizq without depletion is also only found where? In Jannah. In this dunya, when it comes to any kind of rizq that you can think about, and remember, rizq is not only food and drink. Rizq is also sometimes, favorable attention. Rizq is also love. Right? So that also in this dunya goes through, this kind of rizq, meaning in the form of love or favorable attention. This also goes through ups and downs. Even amongst, like a married couple, there is that rizq of love, which is cherished, and it should be cherished. It should be something that, the married couple is grateful for, but that also goes through what? Ups and downs. There is that like honeymoon phase where, both the two are in love with each other and they cannot think beyond each other, and then what happens with passage of time? That kind of fades. It doesn't depart necessarily completely, but it's not quite the same. And no matter how much they think, okay, now we'll go for like the second and third and fourth honeymoon, it's never going to be like the first. So any kind of risk that you can think of here in this dunya, it goes through some kind of depletion. Risk without depletion is only found where? In Jannah. Which is why we need to build within ourselves contentment with regards to the risk we have here in this dunya, of any form. So that we can get to Jannah where there is risk without depletion. In Surah Hud also, we learn in verse number 108, وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ سُعِدُوا فَفِي الْجَنَّةِ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا. And as for those who were destined to be prosperous, they will be in paradise, abiding therein as long as the heavens and the earth endure, except what your Lord should will. عَطَاءً غَيْرَ مَجْذُوذٍ, a bestowal uninterrupted. And then Allah mentions here towards the end of this surah, قُلْ لَوْ كَانَ الْبَحْرُ مِدَادًا لِكَلِمَاتِ رَبِّي. Say, if the sea were ink for writing the words of your Lord, of my Lord, my Rabb. If the sea were ink for writing the words of my Rabb, لَنَفِدَ الْبَحْرُ, the sea would be exhausted. قَبْلَ أَن تَنْفَدَ كَلِمَاتُ رَبِّي, before the words of my Lord were exhausted. وَلَوْ جِئْنَا بِمِثْلِهِ مَدَدًا, even if we brought the like of it as a supplement. قُلْ لَوْ كَانَ الْبَحْرُ, say, if the sea, meaning all the seas, all the water of the large bodies of water on this earth. Remember, 75% of the earth is what? Water. 3/4 of the earth. Say, if the sea were ink for writing the words of my Rabb. And the term kalimat, plural of kalima. Kalima means word, so kalimat means words. And there are two types of kalimat of Allah. Number one, kalimat shar'iyya, which are words that Allah has revealed to the messengers, which includes the Qur'an and also previous scriptures. And also His knowledge, His ilm. So there are kalimat that are shar'iyya, and then there are kalimat that are actually kawniyya, meaning what it is that Allah has created through His kalima, kun. Okay? Think about the DNA codes of every living thing. Right? These have come into being because of what? The kalima kun. And every day scientists are discovering different kinds of species of plants and insects and animals, sea creatures also. Would we ever be able to write all of the details, all of the DNA codes of all of these creatures? No. But all of this is within the knowledge of Allah. This is all included within which kind of kalimat? Kawniyya. Because behind every living creature, meaning in terms of its howness, there is what? An entire coding. How much of that coding do we even know? Nothing really. All of this is included within what? Kalimat of Allah. Kalimat kawniyya. And of course, when it comes to kalimat shar'iyya, this includes all of the divine scriptures, the Qur'an included. What it is that Allah has revealed to His messengers. And when it comes to the Qur'an, no matter how many times you read it, recite it, listen to it being recited, study it, consult it, you can never encompass all of it. Every time you read it or recite it, you will come across something new. You will extract new lessons. You will understand new concepts. And you can never really confine His words, meaning Allah's words, to a word count. And we learn that Khadir, he said to Musa alayhi salam, my knowledge and your knowledge in comparison to Allah's knowledge is like what this bird has taken out of the sea. He said this when this bird actually, sat on the side of the boat and dipped its beak into the water. How much could it have taken out? Then also the kalimat of Allah includes His knowledge, which is so vast, encompasses everything, and also His marvels, the proofs of His oneness, the ajaib, all the amazing things that happen. Say, if the sea were ink for writing the words of my Lord, لَنَفِدَ الْبَحْرُ, the sea would be exhausted. The term nafida from noon dal, nafad, is used for when something comes to an end. It's depleted, used up. Because the kalimat of Allah are so many. Because He is mudabbir and hadi of everything, the planner and also the guide of everything. Think about just one pen that you used to write with. How much ink does it contain? And how much can you write with one pen? Now, if the entire water was ink, all the water on the earth, and all the trees were pens, still the kalimat would not be exhausted. The kalimat of Allah would not be exhausted. In Surah Luqman also we learn in verse number 27, وَلَوْ أَنَّمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ مِنْ شَجَرَةٍ أَقْلَامٍ. And if whatever trees upon the earth were pens, and the sea was ink, replenished thereafter by 7 more seas, the words of Allah would not be exhausted. مَا نَفِدَتْ كَلِمَاتُ اللَّهِ. And here Allah mentions, if the sea were ink for writing the words of my Lord, the sea would be exhausted. قَبْلَ أَن تَنْفَدَ كَلِمَاتُ رَبِّي, before the words of my Lord were exhausted. وَلَوْ جِئْنَا بِمِثْلِهِ مَدَدًا, even if we brought the like of it, meaning the bahr, the midad, as a supplement, even then the words will not be exhausted. And the term madada from mim dal dal, madad means assistance, reinforcement. So the seas will run out before completing the recording and writing of the kalimat of my Lord. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, announce this to the people. I am only a man, human being, like you, not an angel. إِنَّمَا is kalima hasr. It limits the meaning to what is mentioned. Say to the people, I am only a man, human being. Mithlukum, like you. Meaning, as a human being, like you, I also become unwell. I feel hunger. I try to protect myself. I'm a human being, just like you. Yuha ilayhi, to whom it has been revealed. Annama ilahukum ilahu wahid, that your God is one God. The oneness of your Rabb has been revealed to me. So, I receive wahi, like other prophets were given wahi. Yuha ilayhi, to whom it has been revealed. Annama ilahukum ilahu wahid, that your God is one God. And this is the gist or the essence of the message given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ, so whoever would hope for the meeting with his Lord, meaning hopes for a good reward and recompense. The term yarju from rajim wahu. Raja means wish, or it's a combination of hope and fear. And here the meaning of hope is more dominant. So whoever would hope for the meeting with his Lord, meaning hopes to meet his Lord and believes in this meeting, فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا, let him do righteous work in accordance with the prescribed laws of Allah. So here we're being informed of a simple, straightforward way or recipe, right, that needs to be followed to ensure that the meeting with Allah is the best meeting of all. We've been taught a simple, straightforward formula. فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ, so whoever would hope for the meeting with his Lord, فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا, let him do righteous work. Let him focus on amalun salih. وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا, and not associate in the worship of his Lord anyone. Now notice how Amalun Salih already incorporates within it the condition of ikhlas, sincerity. So when shirk is nullified here, and ikhlas is mentioned again, it shows the immense importance associated with sincerity. There should not be even a little bit of shirk or riya in your deeds. So whoever would hope for the meeting with his Lord, let him do righteous work and not associate in the worship of his Lord anyone. And what is meant by worship? Salah, prostration, dua, servitude. So the central and constant message delivered to all the prophets is that of monotheism, tawheed, and also the prohibition of shirk. There is only one God worthy of worship without any partner, so be obedient to him. Believe in the last day. Believe in meeting with him. So how should you worship Allah in preparation for the meeting with him? Without associating any partners with him. So as long as a person is alive, one should be busy in performing righteous deeds. In Surah al-Ankabut, we learn in verse 5, مَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ اللَّهِ, whoever should hope for the meeting with Allah, فَإِنَّ أَجَلَ اللَّهِ لَآتٍ, indeed the term decreed by Allah is coming, وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ, and He is the hearing, the knowing. So we need to do a constant self-evaluation lifelong, and our focus should remain on ahsan amal. Okay, let's listen to the recitation from verse number 102.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أفحسب الذين كفروا أن يتخذوا عبادي من دوني أولياء إنا أعتدنا جهنم للكافرين نزلا قل هل ننبئكم بالأخسرين أعمالا الذين ضل سعيهم في الحياة الدنيا وهم يحسبون أنهم يحسنون صنعا أولئك الذين كفروا بآيات ربهم ولقائه فحبطت أعمالهم فلا نقيم لهم يوم القيامة وزنا ذلك جزاؤهم جهنم بما كفروا واتخذوا آياتي ورسلي هزوا إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا خالدين فيها لا يبغون عنها حولا قل لو كان البحر مدادا لكلمات ربي لنفد البحر قبل أن تنفد كلمات ربي ولو جئنا بمثله مددا قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد فمن كان يرجو لقاء ربه فليعمل عملا صالحا ولا يشرك بعبادة ربه أحدا.
In verse number 109, where it is mentioned, قُلْ لَوْ كَانَ الْبَحْرُ مِدَادًا لِكَلِمَاتِ رَبِّي, say if the sea were ink for writing the words of my Lord, لَنَّفِدَ الْبَحْرُ, the sea would be exhausted. قبل أن تنفد كلمات ربي, before the words of my Lord were exhausted. ولو جئنا بمثله مددا, even if we brought the like of it as a supplement. The term midadan, from mim dal dal, madda yamuddu, means to spread or extend, and it's used for a length of time or an age. The term mad, it means to stretch out one's arms, to elongate. It's also used in the meaning of stretching the sound of something, right? So midad means ink, because that also spreads. It extends on pages, in books. See, if the waters of the sea, all of the water on this earth, were ink, to record the kalimat of my Rabb, kalimat shari'iyya and kawniyya, including his marvels, his knowledge, the sea would be exhausted. Before the words of my Lord were exhausted. Even if we brought the like of it, meaning the midad, the ink, as a supplement, as a replenishment. Allah is so great. Allahu Akbar. And what are we? قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I am only a man, a human being. In Surah Al-Jinn, verse 21, we learn, قُلْ إِنِّي لَا أَمْلِكُ لَكُمْ ضَرًّا وَلَا رَشَدًا. Say, indeed, I do not possess for you the power of harm or right direction. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was a human being. As for those who say that he was made out of light, they have no evidence for this. Because some people do claim that he didn't have a shadow. He was made out of light. So what does this verse mean then? This verse is very clear, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is instructed to say what? Innama ana basharun mithlukum. I am only a man like you, a human being. But despite this, there are people who attribute to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam such high attributes that are not befitting. And what makes him different from average human beings is yuha ilayhi. He receives wahi. But other prophets, also human beings, have received wahi. And what is the essence of the message that has been communicated to him through wahi? That your God is one God. So keeping this in mind, whoever would hope for the meeting with his Lord, let him do righteous work and not associate in the worship of his Lord anyone. Stay away from shirk. Now again, think about the virtue associated with this particular surah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, whoever memorizes 10 verses from the beginning of Surah Al-Kahf will be immune to the Dajjal, will be protected from the Dajjal. And in another narration we learned, he said, from the last 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf. So reciting this surah is a means of protecting oneself from the fitna of Dajjal, which is the greatest fitna or trial that humanity will face. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, nothing between the creation of Adam until the establishment of the hour, meaning the day of judgment, is a greater tribulation than the affair of Dajjal. And when it comes to the trials that he is going to come with, Abu Umama, he narrates, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, part of his fitna will be that he will say to a Bedouin, what do you think if I resurrect your father and mother for you? Will you bear witness that I am your Lord? He will say yes. Then a devil will appear to him in the form of his father and mother and will say, oh my son, follow him for he is your Lord. Think of the kinds of delusions he's going to bring with him. The kinds of deceptions that he's going to bring with him. Now, this surah, Surah Al-Kahf, protects a person from the fitna of Dajjal. And in this surah, there is mention of 4 stories. Right? We're taught about 4 different kinds of tests. In this worldly life, 4 things can be a means of trial for someone. There are 4 ways through which a person may be tested. There is the trial or the test of faith, When a person intends to do what is good, he will definitely be tested. In Surah al-Ankabut, verse 2, we learn, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do the people think that they will be left to say, we believe, and they will not be tried? And when a person is tested, he is tested to the extent that he either gives up or he remains steadfast upon the deen. Even if it means in some cases to sacrifice his life in the way of Allah. So what should a person do in a dire situation? He cannot leave his deen. He cannot give up. So one option might be to retreat. And we learned this lesson from the story of the people of the cave. When they found it difficult to remain steadfast upon their deen, in the city that they were living in, they left the city and retreated to the cave. We learn in verse 16 of Surah al-Kahf. The young men, they said to each other, and when you have withdrawn from them, and that which they worship other than Allah, retreat to the cave. فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ يَنْشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ. Your Lord will spread out for you of His mercy and will prepare for you from your affair facility. Just trust Allah, rely upon Him. Because when you give up something for the sake of Allah, you will feel a little bit of fear. But remember, Allah will definitely appreciate your sacrifices in His way. He never allows the reward of the doer of good to be wasted. So in facing this test of faith, what is needed? What is a solution that one needs to look towards? Righteous companionship. This is something that the Ashabul Kahf were blessed with. Righteous companionship. When you're tested in your religion, in your faith, one solution in terms of trying to deal with this, to pass this test, is adopt righteous companionship. And this surah also gives us this lesson. وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ. And also another solution, prefer the life of the hereafter over the life of this dunya. And that is why Allah mentions the horrors of the Day of Judgment in this surah as well. Because if you keep in mind reward and punishment, implementation becomes easier. So the solutions when it comes to dealing with the tests of faith are what? Number one, righteous companionship. And number two, prefer the hereafter above the dunya. Then when it comes to the trial of wealth, this is related to the story of the man with the two gardens. The fitna of wealth makes a person heedless of the hereafter. It leads to arrogance developing within a person denying the hereafter. In Surah Al-Kahf, verse 36, we learn, وَمَا أَظُنُّ السَّاعَةَ قَائِمَةً وَلَئِن رُدِدتُّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي لَأَجِدَنَّ خَيْرًا مِّنْهَا مُنْقَلَبًا. The man of the two gardens, he said, I don't think the hour will occur, and even if I should be brought back to my Lord, I will surely find better than this as a return. Deception of wealth, right? A person assumes, I have so much of ease here in this dunya, I'm beloved to Allah, and so I'm going to be fine. Even if there is a hereafter, I'll make it. I'll succeed. Whereas a person shouldn't think that because he's wealthy, he's beloved to Allah. And in the story, we see that this man who was wealthy, his wealth was destroyed. So a person shouldn't rely upon his wealth, because wealth can leave a person at any time. So the solution is, when it comes to dealing with this test of wealth, the love of wealth is placed in the heart of a human being, but the human being should think of its reality. Understand the dunya is temporary. Don't attach yourself too much to this dunya and the luxuries of this dunya. Big mansions, nice clothes, gold and silver. All of this is going to perish. Focus on that which will last. This is the solution when it comes to dealing with the test of wealth. المال والبنون زينة الحياة الدنيا والباقيات الصالحات خير عند ربك ثوابا وخير أملا. Wealth and children are adornment. They will leave you. You need to focus on your own deeds. Understand the real purpose of your existence. Then there is the mention of the trial that comes with knowledge. And what is the fitna of knowledge? One can become arrogant on account of knowledge. One can also conceal knowledge without implementing it. One can start pursuing what is useless and is not of benefit to anyone. And so it's important that when a person gains knowledge, as a person gains knowledge, one humbles himself or herself. And we understand this lesson from the story of Musa alayhi salam and Khadir. So, the solution when it comes to dealing with this trial of knowledge is that for a person to come out of the pride of knowledge, one should instill humility in himself, become modest. Examine the character of Musa alayhi salam in this regard. Never think that, oh, I know this and that. Nobody needs to tell me in terms of my mistakes, remind me of what I need to pay attention to. Humble yourself. Then when it comes to the trial of power, what is the fitna of power? When a person attains power, he tends to abuse his power. And he thinks that this power will remain with him forever. And so we take a lesson from the story of Dhul-Qarnayn, who despite having so much, still remained humble, still remained obedient to Allah. So much power that he had and the asbab that he had didn't corrupt him. So we learn from this that if Allah blesses you with authority, and this could be any position of leadership, recognize this as Allah's mercy and be just, humble yourself. Again, the solution in terms of dealing with this trial of power, humble yourself. Remember, this authority that you have been granted is because of Allah's mercy towards you. Be just, be humble. And when it comes to the trials that Dajjal will bring, he is actually a collection of all of these trials. The trial of religion, of wealth, of knowledge, of authority and power. He will ask people to worship him. He will claim to be God. And he will deceive many with his ability to seemingly resurrect the dead. Although that's a deception. And also, he will order the earth to bring out its treasures. And he will control, from what it seems like, rain also. He will make people rich. Then also, he will deceive many by his ability to sort of seemingly foresee the future. He will be able to control most of the countries on the earth except for Mecca and Medina. So what should you do in order to protect yourself from the fitna of Dajjal? Recite this surah every Friday. And then also keep in mind that in the middle of this surah, there is mention of Iblis. And what is stated, وَهُمْ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ. Him and his zurriyah are mentioned. Iblis and his progeny, his followers are mentioned. Because they try to distract people from their main purpose in life. And then at the conclusion of this surah, Allah mentions, قُلْ هَلْ نُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِالْأَخْسَرِينَ أَعْمَالًا. Say, shall we inform you of the greatest losers as to their deeds? People running around only for this dunya. For more and more power, more and more knowledge, more and more worldly glamour. More and more wealth. So the overall lessons that we derive from this surah include, number one, that a believer should constantly work in the right direction. In the case of Ashabul Kahf, we learned فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ. They had determination and resolve. We must retreat to the cave. That's the best option to save our faith. In the case of Musa alayhi salam, لَقَدْ لَقِينَا مِنْ سَفَرِنَا هَذَا نَصَبًا. He went into fatigue. He traveled and traveled and traveled in pursuit of knowledge. He didn't give up. He remained determined, constantly at work. And in the case of Dhul-Qarnayn, ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. So notice there's a lot of action in the stories in this surah. And this is because continuous action in the right direction is needed in order to not fall into the traps of shaitan. Having a lot of free time gives a lot of leeway to the devil. As they say, the empty mind is the devil's workshop. And this is why Muslims need to recite this surah mindfully on the day of Jumu'ah so that the important lessons remain with them throughout the weekend. Because many people make many big mistakes when? On the weekends. Because why? They have a lot of time. And not much to do. But a believer always has something good to do. Because a believer keeps the hereafter in mind. Then also, Belief in the unseen is very important. There are many matters of the unseen mentioned in this surah. Like, for example, the number of the people of the cave, the location of the barrier between the people in general and Ya'juj and Ma'juj, knowledge of Khidr and who he is, right? Matters of the unseen. Our knowledge is very limited. But when it is that we are informed of certain matters of the unseen, we believe in them as we have been informed by Allah. Then also we learn about the importance of enjoining good and forbidding evil. Ashabul Kahf communicate to one another about what is right, what's good, what needs to be done. Then also when it comes to the two men, one of them owner of 2 gardens, and the other one who was not as well off, that other one warns the owner of the 2 gardens. He communicates. This is tawasaw bil haqq, right? Khadir also is imparting knowledge to Musa alayhi salam. Dhul Qarnayn is also spreading the message of Tawheed. And also we learn about the importance of calling people towards the truth. And this can happen between different classes and levels of the society, which shows us the importance of continuously reminding people. Ashabul Kahf remained upon the truth, even though the king at their time was not upon the truth. He was mushrik. When it comes to, the 2 companions, one of them possessor of 2 gardens and the other one not as well off, the one who was not as well off communicated to his friend about the truth. In the case of Khadir also, he explained to Musa alayhi salam what needed to be explained to him in his pursuit of knowledge. He brought him the truth. And Dhul Qarnayn spread the truth wherever he went. The truth prevails. Then also in the beginning of this surah, there is mention of the Qur'an. Alhamdulillahi alladhi anzala ala abdihi al-kitaba wa lam yaj'al lahu iwaja. And at the conclusion of this surah, what is mentioned? قُلْ لَوْ كَانَ الْبَحْرُ مِدَادًا لِكَلِمَاتِ رَبِّي لَنَفِدَ الْبَحْرُ قَبْلَ أَن تَنْفَدَ كَلِمَاتُ رَبِّي وَلَوْ جِئْنَا بِمِثْلِهِ مَدَدًا. So this Qur'an is not ordinary. No matter how many times you recite it and read it, you cannot encompass it completely. And so it's not enough to recite this book just once. Learn it just once. You must make this book a companion in your life. So this indicates that abiding by this book will lead to protection from the different kinds of trials. The trials that come with faith, the trials that come with knowledge, the trials that come with wealth, and the trials that come with authority. Okay, reflection question. The last verse of Surah Al-Kahf has a very poignant lesson. Say, I am only a man like you to whom has been revealed that your God is one God. So whoever would hope for the meeting with his Lord, let him do righteous work and not associate in the worship of his Lord anyone. What are the other lessons from Surah Al-Kahf? Do I recite it every Friday? So, of course, pay attention to memorizing the entire surah, but more importantly, the first 10 verses and the last 10 verses of the surah, if you have not done so already. And also, plan your method of sharing the gems that you have collected throughout this surah, Surah Al-Kahf. Okay? All right, now take a minute to share with one another what it is that you have learned, and inshallah we will hear a few reflections before we conclude. Okay, let's hear a few reflections. What did you reflect upon? What did you learn for yourself? Any one reflection, two reflections, maybe. Yes, go ahead, Basra, online. Okay, we're not able to hear you. Okay, perhaps there's some technical problems. Yes, go ahead, Inza. Where's the mic?
I really appreciated the last ayah. The point about you were reading it throughout the whole surah as well, how that's been a constant theme throughout the various stories and various points within the stories as well, where different people within these situations did, an amal and salih, and how that was really rewarding, and that's kind of the way that they pass all of these tests. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioning it so explicitly at the end, to kind of just wrap everything up with a bow. And not only that, like, I feel like it's almost like speaking to me, because I'm the type of person who can't really, you know how like some people will say, what's the symbolic meaning of a tree, and they're like life, and it's like, growth and so many amazing things. I'm the type of person that would like, it's green and it's brown. Like, I'll probably just point out the very basic things. So I feel like science for me, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala couldn't have been more explicit in like tying it all together and being like, if there's one thing you're going to do, it has to be this. These 2 points at the end. So yeah, that really spoke to me.
Yeah. And notice how there is mention of the meeting with Allah. Because in the end of the day, that's what matters the most. The affair that we have to be most of all concerned about is what? Our affair with our Creator. And many of us, because of all of these different trials that, we go through, all these different temptations that we have here in this dunya, we forget about this matter. And so we're way too people conscious. We want our affairs with people to be sound. Okay, those affairs do matter, but what's more important? Your affair with your Creator. Is He pleased with you in terms of everything that you're doing? So whoever would hope for the meeting with his Lord, meaning hopes for good reward and recompense, let him do righteous work and not associate in the worship of his Lord anyone. All right, inshallah, we will end here for now. I'll continue working on your compilation of gems that you have extracted or collected throughout the surah. And in particular, on Friday, try and share these gems using social media. Okay, as a reminder for yourself and a reminder for others as well. Inshallah. Okay. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله